Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24. In a little over 4 months, the mother of all elections in France, the presidential election, will take place. One thing is sure, we will have a new president. The current one, François Hollande, has announced that he would not run for re-election, and his predecessor, Nicolas Sarkozy, is out of contention. But who will sit in the Elysée Palace next May is anyone's guess. For this last face-off of the year, we're going to take stock of the political situation and take a close look at this presidential race with our two usual suspects, Jean-Marc Gonin with the Figaro magazine and Philippe Turle with Radio France Internationale. So we have three main blocs competing for the presidency. We have the far right, united behind Marine Le Pen, the conservative camp, now standing behind the winner of its primary, former Prime Minister François Fillon, and the left, which finds itself splintered into three blocs: the far left, the ruling Socialist Party, and a new centrist candidate in the person of the former economy minister, Emmanuel Macron. We'll take a look at a poll taken very recently, a major poll for the Daily Le Monde by Ipsos Stereo. It shows that for the first round, the conservative candidate François Fillon would arrive first. Then there would be Marine Le Pen in second position. Those two would qualify for the runoff, the second round, way in front of the third candidate, who would be Emmanuel Macron, the former economy minister I just mentioned, ahead of the far-left leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and well ahead of the socialist candidate, whoever that might be, who would arrive only in fifth position. Jean-Marc Gonin, we're going to go step by step. First of all, the favorite seems to be now the conservative candidate.
Yes, François Fillon is a very legitimate candidate. He has won, without any discussion, the primary. He's a former prime minister, and he is a strong candidate, and he hasn't got to fear any kind of difficulties in his party, and he should reach the second run, as we see with the opinion polls we just seen on the screen.
Do you agree that François Fillon, who was really lost in the doldrums for many months and emerged as the surprise winner, clearly has control of this race right now? He's not that high in the polls.
He's got a problem. The problem that François Fillon has to face is that he appeals to middle-class, bourgeois, city voters, but he's not popular amongst the popular classes of France in the countryside, in the suburbs. If you go back to 2007 under Nicolas Sarkozy, you'll find that he had a much wider global appeal, particularly on the security issue and other issues that people wanted to vote in favour of for him. In that case, François Fillon doesn't have such a wide appeal, so he has quite a lot of work to do to swing over support from those classes who I think for the moment might be more tempted to vote for Marine Le Pen than for François Fillon. So he's not going to necessarily win the election. He's in a good position to do so. He's in a good position to get through to the second round, but it's still early days. And so as we don't already know who is going to be the left-wing candidate who he's going to face on the left, it's still quite open, I think. But as far as the right is concerned, the right-wing Republican Party is 100% behind him. So that battle, as far as he's concerned, is over. Now he has to win the general support of the French population to get to be president of France.
Now to the far right, Marine Le Pen, we've known this for a long, long time, will be the candidate. She's been riding high in the polls, higher than the current poll. We actually see some of the polls have shown that she was actually leading the pack. She's considered as a shoe-in for round two. Is this still the case? Can she, for the first time, qualify, or the second time, I should say, because there was the precedent of her father in 2002, but which was more of an accident. But there, can she really be in the second round?
Well, again, the poll results we've just seen show a certain wearing out of her support. She was expecting to be first in this very opinion poll, and she's not. So there might be some phenomenon of maybe curiosity towards François Fillon, who has very strong positions on certain issues.
So he could eat up some of her votes. Is that what you're saying?
He could, because he has taken strong positions on a certain number of issues where the Front National is normally pretty strong. And she has a problem also inside her party with her niece, Marion, who opposes her on certain issues. But when you look at the opinion polls inside her camp, her party, people don't make so much notice of it. It's a protest force, and they don't look at it as an average party where you have trends, tendencies, currents that are rivals inside the system.
Clearly, I mean, if you look at the past 5 years, the National Front has been on the rise. Every election, local, European, they've been improving, and they're certainly counting on this presidential election to qualify for round two. Can they hope for the presidency?
They've had two lots of good news over the last few years. The first news was when Sarkozy was in power, they said, well, look, Sarkozy isn't doing what he promised to do. Then there was the financial crisis of 2008, which the National Front has also profited from. Then they profited from the fact that François Hollande was elected president. They say François Hollande hasn't done the job. François Hollande is a left-wing candidate. François Hollande has been more liberal than he said he was going to be. He hasn't honoured his promises. They've also profited from the wave of migrants coming from the wars in Syria and in Iraq. So Marine Le Pen has used all of this to create a power base in this country. The bad news for Marine Le Pen is that she was hoping that Alain Juppé would win the right-wing primary, and she would have had a much better time opposite him because he was much more left-leaning maybe in his, or centre-leaning in his policies than François Fillon is. So now we're in this situation. She's opposite François Fillon, who appeals more to National Front voters. The interesting thing will be, we'll see when the left have their candidate, whether the people who would have voted for that candidate will still vote for the left or might move over to vote for Marine Le Pen. She's now even more left-wing in a lot of her policies than the left is. So Marine Le Pen, yes, she could get through to the second round. It's not going to be quite as easy as she'd hoped, but she's still high there in the opinion polls.
Okay, now to the third block, the leftist block.
The swamp.
The swamp, if you want it. We have a far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, a centrist candidate, Emmanuel Macron. They say they would not participate in the primary of the Socialist Party that will take place in a month's time, and there will be a winner to this primary. So you have three main players, and obviously it's not a good sign for the left.
There's no good sign for the left at this moment. If I go back to the figures we've just seen, you've seen that two candidates, Mélenchon, who is left of the party, and Macron, who is right of the party, are riding higher than Manuel Valls, who participates in the primary.
The former prime minister.
The former prime minister. So you might have, I'm not saying it's going to be the case, but looking at it right now, you might have a winner coming out of the primary who is lower than the two others in the race, in the polls. So this is terrible news for the Socialist Party, because they make such a fuss in January to have a primary with 7 candidates competing, debating, and in the end, the winner might fare worse than the two others who have refused to participate. So that's what I call the swamp.
Yes, but this could still change. I mean, whoever emerges from this primary, there are a number of candidates. Manuel Valls, who abandoned his position as prime minister to be able to run in that primary, according to this poll, would fare better than maybe his main competitor, Arnaud Montebourg, who's more to the left of the party. But maybe the socialists can unite behind a candidate just as the Conservatives did.
It's very difficult for them to reunite behind one candidate because they spent the last 5 years tearing each other apart. So you've got Manuel Valls, who's the Prime Minister, who's in this extremely difficult position where he's an independent candidate. He was the Prime Minister of François Hollande. François Hollande has been terribly low in the opinion polls, which explains why he's not running for president again this time round. Manuel Valls is trying to create a new image, but at the same having to defend what he did when he was Prime Minister, and part of Hollande's government also as Interior Minister at the start.
Mission impossible.
So it's mission impossible for him. So he probably, if all goes well, might win the primary. It depends what happens after that. You've got Emmanuel Macron on the right side, who is high in the opinion polls, but is a fragile candidate because he has no party behind him. He's got quite a good support base, but it's mostly a friend support base. He hasn't. We're
There's
not
a lot
really
of money
short.
to fill it.
A lot of money as well, but he's not got a power base behind him like Manuel Valls has with the Socialist Party. Then you have Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's on the far left, and his mission is basically to destroy the Socialist Party, to create a more left-wing party reunited with maybe the Greens and with the Communists. So I don't think there'll be an alliance with Jean-Luc Mélenchon, but I suspect that if Manuel Valls wins the primary, he might try and negotiate with Emmanuel Macron to come in with him to just preserve the Socialist Party and to preserve the left, and maybe even give them a slight hope of getting through to the second round of the presidential election. So my guess is that we'll have, at the moment, if there is an election tomorrow, Marine Le Pen, François Hollande through to the second round, Socialist Party eliminated. But if Macron and Valls can come together, there might be a glimmer of hope for the left to get through to the second round. But it's still open, so anybody's guess as to what could happen.
You agree? Very quickly.
If there are three candidates on the left, they can't reach the second round.
They've had it.
No one. It's a done deal.
Okay. Obviously, 4 months to go. Lots of things can happen, and lots of things have happened.
And will happen.
And will happen. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you again to Narimane Laouadi for all her help in setting up Face Off this year, 2016. We'll see you next year.